Yeah, hey everyone. Thanks for having me here today. And I think we are all right now really in an interesting phase of AI where, to me, it seems like all ingredients to build AI applications are really out there, right? It's so many tools, so many content, so many technology that is just out there. But still, somehow many teams struggle in building really successful AI applications out there. And I get it, like there's so much noise out there, so many AI influencers on LinkedIn. It can be really overwhelming, right? And then maybe even some internal pressure to just ship some AI instead of a cron job, maybe. So I get it. It's hard. It's overwhelming. In the next 15 minutes, I'd like to still increase your odds a bit of shipping a successful AI project, and particularly want to shift your attention to two areas that I think are particularly relevant and helpful for being successful with AI applications. And there it's really about just getting the right mix there. Before I dive in, let me give you also a bit of context where I'm coming from to let you also understand a bit of what I'm talking here about today. So we founded deepset 7 years ago, and we worked pretty much with big enterprise customers from day one. And over time, then we launched 2 successful products, Haystack, our open source LLM orchestration framework, and then the deepset AI platform a bit later, which is basically an enterprise-grade platform where teams can really build end-to-end, very, I would say, complex custom AI systems in a fast way. And what we focus on with our work and our products and in the market is really on what we call mission-critical use cases in the enterprise. So typically those use cases where a lot is at stake, where a lot of customization is needed, where the use case is pretty particular maybe to the company or to the industry, and where they want to ensure high robustness, accuracy, and so on. So many of our customers come more from the defense space, finance space, pharma, and public sector. And in our work, we not just like ship our products to them, but we also really partner with them the whole way of implementation. So really from use case discovery all the way to production. Talking about production, I'd be curious to see like where you are in your AI journey. So maybe a quick show of hands. Who of you is right now kind of in the exploration stage, exploring AI, but hasn't really built anything? Okay. And who is in right now prototyping, trying something out, a POC? Okay, also a few. Who has at least one use case already running in production? Okay, quite a few. And last, who of you who have something in production really see value out of that? A few at least, that's good, but not as many hands as in the production stage. So I would say this is a pretty usual distribution that we have here today. And I think we all have to work together to get this year, next year, way more into this last value stage. And I really argue like all the ingredients are out there. Like we don't need to wait for, I don't know, next model generation or the next big shiny technology. It's really only about how we mix things together now. So our job right now is not that different from a bartender. Like we have to learn a few recipes, learn a few key skills that are essential. But then ultimately, it's also really about the creativity of adapting that to your guest, to your use case, making sure that you mix the right drink for the use case. And we at deepset worked with by now hundreds of teams around our open source community, around Haystack. We have around about 400,000 monthly active developers. So from all of these teams who build, I would say my key learnings, how it summarizes, the 2 important mixtures that people typically underestimate and get wrong are those 2 here. The first one, how do we really get the right mix of AI and human? So what is the AI really supposed to do? How much autonomy do we give? At what point exactly is the human involved? when does a human review something, how, all of that. And the second, basically on the context. So how do we mix really the right context for the LLM application that it can actually solve the task that we want it to do. And if you look at successful AI applications that are out there today, they always put much, much effort into these two areas. So let's now look into these areas one by one, and starting with the AI and human mix, so the right level of autonomy. And to say it straight away, full autonomy is freaking hard. And we typically underestimate how hard it is. In 2012, Google did the first ride on a public road with an autonomous vehicle. And I was in the US back then, and I remember AVs felt somehow imminent. Like people thought they would be probably all around by 2015, or maybe if we're slow at 2020. Well, it's now 2025, and we saw some big progress on AVs, but still not there, not everywhere around. And I would say the learning that we can take from this for AI and for agents, full autonomy also will here take longer than many think today. And until it's fully there, the recipe is really partial autonomy. Let some parts be handled by the AI, but not all. And ideally, make this configurable to the human, depending on the situation. So let the human say, OK, this is a straightforward highway, AI, please take over. Or, oh, now I'm actually going off-road, let me rather take over here again. OK, so we live in the era of partial autonomous apps. Apps where we augment humans with AI to do more. Faster, better, cheaper. And typically this means we have some form of loop where the agent is actually generating an action, the human reviews, and we go on and go on and go on. And this loop seems pretty simple, but it's actually quite hard to make a true flywheel out of that. Because this review step here must be very simple and fast, otherwise humans won't do it, they won't use your application, and this whole thing is doomed to fail. Typically, it needs really some GUI assistance, something specialized for the domain to make it really work. And at the same time, we really need to control the actions of our agents. Particularly, I would say, restricting the scope of what the agent can actually do in a step, and the size, like how big should actually one step of an agent be, because if it's too big, it will be very hard to review. And we need to make this configurable to the user. Again, in some situations, better to review very small steps only. In others, let it just flow on the highway and we review at a later stage. And this idea of making autonomy configurable is something like Andre Karpathy recently called the autonomy slider, and is something that we see now in many of the, I would say, early successful AI applications out there, make it really configurable to your user. Another way to think about autonomy is to look at the execution path from start to finish of an agent. And if you give full autonomy, there's a very high chance that at some point you just derail, right? The agent goes off rail. And you can see this probably in the extreme form of vibe coding. So if you just tell your, say, coding assistant to create a web app for, I don't know, ordering food online, you most likely won't get what you had in mind, right? At some point, it goes off. However, if you create an implementation plan, adjust it with the agent, review every major code step, maybe take over at some point yourself, do some coding yourself, then it's way more likely to succeed, and you still go way faster than with a fully manual implementation. So if you build an AI application, an agentic application yourself, you should also always build in these options for your users, so that they can correct course, that they can review fast, and that they can take over control basically at the major steps. Unfortunately, chat is really not a good type of UI for all of this. And it's very hard actually to follow in a chat what an agent is actually doing to do your review. It's super hard. It's a wall of text in your face. You have to read a lot. Maybe you have to switch tools, copy-paste what's in the chat to other tools to really verify and see if that worked or not. And it's super hard to take over control and maybe edit, let's say, an image that was generated. The second is our human brain is really made for visualizations, right? That's the highway into our brain, way more than reading text. So the more you can actually use visualizations in your application or augment maybe already existing UIs that your users are familiar with to show what the agent did, let humans modify it in that UI, the more successful your app will be at the end. But let's look at an example right now. Let's look at Cursor. I argue that a big part of their success today is actually not due to the AI part, but mainly UX and UI. And they blended basically AI elements into a classic IDE to optimize this human-AI interaction loop. And I don't have to review their lengthy code in the chat, right? I can just see the actual diff in a file, the same way I'm used to with Git for, I don't know, years now. In addition, I can also control the degree of autonomy, right? So I can just go from a tab completion in a line to changing a certain snippet in my code that I selected, a class, for example, or really full autonomous mode with like agent mode that can work across a whole file or a whole repository even. So I think this is like a good example for like a right mix of human and AI. Still way more I think they could do there, but a big step forward from just chat. So now let's look at the second mixture, context engineering. And let's look again at our execution path. And even if some form of human oversight is needed, as we saw earlier, we still want as many of these autonomous steps in here to succeed, right? Because if we have, as a human, have to review and change every of these steps, then this whole thing is pretty useless. And to maximize now likelihood that each step really succeeds here, it's really important to optimize the context. That's the biggest lever that you have. Really make sure that the right and only the right information is available and presented to the LLM. And you hear right now many voices in the industry calling now this term context engineering, first from Annika Pathi, but I've also liked how Tobi Lütke, CTO of Shopify, put this earlier. Context engineering is the art of providing all the context for the task to be plausibly solved by the LLM. And this goes way beyond just writing a clever prompt. And it's also not just about dumping all the information that you can imagine into the context window. Context engineering is really about filling this context window with the most efficient mix of information for the LLM. So what are the typical ingredients here that you can mix together? I would say two categories typically, knowledge and integration. And on the knowledge side, obviously it's still a good idea to ask your subject matter experts to help you with prompting, get a few short examples on maybe what they would expect as outcome, and correct them really on domain-specific matters. We can also use RAG. I'm sure like most of you know and probably use RAG by now. There, I think it's not so much like should we use RAG, it's more about tuning it to an efficient way to work across multiple modalities, multiple knowledge bases, and to really have a short retrieved context snippet that we can put into the LLM. I would say probably around, for the last 1 and 2 years, it also became quite practical, even in production, to retrieve directly knowledge from relational databases. We did it in a couple of projects. From our experience, it's still super helpful to put some domain knowledge around that, so mainly around the schema, describing columns properly, tables, for what type of, let's say, questions and queries should we go where. And last but not least, some knowledge about the past is also useful. I would say by far the most widespread form right now is just chat history. So putting the last n messages of your interaction to the memory and to the context. With integration on the other side, you can, of course, now even go way further. You can add MCP tools to interact pretty much with any API that you have in your enterprise. So your agent could really retrieve directly, say, customer information from Salesforce, test a code snippet via a Python interpreter, or get your schedule from a Google Calendar, for example. So we have plenty of options, and the art is now really about mixing all of this together in the right way. We could probably dive into a full-day workshop just on this topic, but as I'm conscious about my time here this morning, and I know that there will be a couple of more deep dive sessions on this, I hope this just triggered your thinking and curiosity to dive deeper into both of these areas. If you want to get some more inspiration, feel free to check out some of our case studies that we did with customers. And of course, I'm also here at the conference. Feel free to approach me here to chat or write me an email or ping me on LinkedIn afterwards. And I hope that all of you just see, also by the talks today and tomorrow, all the ingredients are really out there. So I think it's our job here together to escape the hype, spend less time on social media around the next shiny thing, but instead really focus on mixing things efficiently together for production. Thank you.